for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is the creator of the Ways to Wealth method, no other than Mr. Brian Bogert.
Good to be here with you, my friend.
Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Brian. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Yeah, at a high level, I'm a husband and father first. I always lead with that because I've said that for 20 years, but my actions were not always congruent. And the story that I'm most well known for, you can see elements of it probably even on the things that's on the screen right now, is that when I was a little kid, I was run over by a truck and my left arm was torn from my body, was reattached and had 24 surgeries, years of adversity. But long story short, and I know we'll unpack different components of it, I used to think that this injury was my transformation story, but the truth of the matter is, it was just the moment in my life that created the most trash from my past that I pushed through and pushed down for years. And it took me a long time to really be able to understand all of the ways that it was negatively affecting me unconsciously. And today, I help heart centered impact makers identify and remove the waste they don't even know exists within so that they can step into the wealth generating side of life, which is beyond just monetary riches. It's also time, relationships, and health. But I do believe that our trash and our treasure are formed in the same moments. And the biggest thing I say before we even get going is the trash from your past is not your fault. It just becomes
True.
your responsibility once you become aware of it, or you start burying others in yours. And the trash from your past will impact your relationships, your business, your revenue, your ability to live in abundance and freedom. And so it becomes one of the more important areas that we can spend time and energy unpacking.
Yes, people, it happened for a reason, Mr. Brian Bogert. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And let's talk about or exploring the heart of entrepreneurship. What's the most misunderstood truth about entrepreneurship that society gets wrong?
Well, I think there are many people who call themselves entrepreneurs who really have just found a way to give themselves a job. And I do believe that though we can have lifestyle businesses and there's nothing wrong with that, I think there are a lot of people who get confused with the concept of an entrepreneur, a business owner, and ultimately having just a set of roles that they end up living into. What I find with most business owners, most entrepreneurs, is that they get into this role typically for a very specific reason, a specific passion, to bring a product, a solution, a service into the world. But so many of them don't know how to understand their worth in a way that they can garner and negotiate their value within the marketplace, nor do they understand how to leverage their time, their energy, their impact in a way that they can actually create scale. Because most people, when they start the business, yes, if it's got an impact focus, that's great. But many people get into their own business for some element of freedom, and then they end up just trapping themselves within their own walls. And so for me, entrepreneurship is one of the greatest gifts, but I don't believe that every single person is wired in a way to be able to handle the ups and downs, the inconsistencies, particularly in the early years. And so I think entrepreneurship is becoming a little bit of a buzzword. It's an escape, it's an outlet, and everybody and their brother is an entrepreneur these days. When in fact, not every single person is meant or designed to be an entrepreneur. There are many people who are better off working for someone else as an employee. So the freedom can exist, but not without the risk and not without the trials and tribulations, which requires even more need for you to get clear on who you are and the things that no longer serve you, so that you can live the life and create the freedoms that you started the business for in the first place.
Yes, people don't afraid to take the risk. It's worth it. Beyond profit, how do you define success for an entrepreneur this 2025?
For me, success is joy, freedom, and fulfillment. It's beyond just monetary riches. But when we talk about wealth, I talk about it beyond just monetary riches, which is time, relationships, and health. And if we don't have our health, right, we want it more than we want anything else. If we have our health and we have nothing else, we desire and crave relationships more than anything, right? And time is the one thing we can't create more of. And so for me, it's about really understanding that wealth and success are way beyond just monetary riches. And one of the things that I really call attention to with this is that um, success is ultimately up to and defined by you, the listener. My definition of success is mine. You can steal it if it works for you. But at the end of the day, it's about understanding very clearly what does success mean for you that will matter most in your own journey.
Mr. Brian, what's your litmus test for distinguishing a viable idea from a passion project?
Is there a marketplace who can benefit from this particular idea, service, product, or otherwise? I think sometimes we can build things that we think everyone will love and everyone will use, but there isn't enough market research to understand what the appetite is or what the marketplace could even look like. And in business planning, whether you're going after an investor or you're going to bootstrap it yourself, the reality of it is that the incoming opportunities or the outbound effort that creates inbound activity, right? Anything for people to buy your service or your product. Um, this is the area where most businesses suffer the most. Many, it's just because they don't know how to go get them. But there are still a number of businesses that there's not really even a marketplace of people to purchase the solution or the product that's created. And so that's the biggest piece of advice I give to anybody who's in the beginning stages of starting beyond just your idea and beyond your passion is there a marketplace and is there a need within the marketplace that you can uniquely fill? And nobody can tell you yes or no on that, honestly. If you believe and you have a vision and a passion, I'm all for you chasing it. But do so in a way that you're stacking your risks in your favor because you are asking the right questions so that you can see the right options and opportunities so you can make the correct choices as to what your timing and risk tolerance is, regardless of the product service. And again, I hope that if it's a passion project, it's going to give you more momentum and more legs and more ability to push through on the days that it's difficult. So passion is a requirement, I think, for any entrepreneur to be successful. But passion is not necessarily what makes a viable business. It's the ability to have a marketplace that needs the services or product and are willing to purchase it.
Very well said, Mr. Brian. Beautifully, beautifully articulated. How do you balance visionary thinking with ruthless prioritization early on?
Well, there's this concept of working in the business or working on the business. And I'm a big believer that we need to have the vision. We need to have the clarity and understanding for what it is that we want to create, who it is that we want to impact, the pathways that we want that to look like, whether it's offers in a service structure or again in a product suite. But vision is required. But without intentional aligned action, the vision does not ever come into the world. And I'm a big believer that if we're not moving, if we're not growing, then we're dying. And one of the things that I discuss often is the only time in life that we actually exist in waste is by definition when we are stuck. When we are stuck, it means we are not moving. Now, there's a lot of confusion in this because there's a lot of business owners and people who are constantly in motion, meaning they're doing a lot of activities, but they don't necessarily produce results or they don't necessarily actually create growth within the business. They're just taking time, energy, resources, and money. And so we need to make sure that whatever activities we're taking are intentional and are aligned to the desired outcomes or path to fulfill upon that vision. And so one of the big things that I often will ask people and suggest is if you feel stuck, that means you're existing in waste. But the only time we exist in waste is if we stop asking questions, right? Because why?
Yes.
Questions, again, like I said before, help us create options and opportunities, to make new choices, to create new changes. Your vision is not going to manifest in the way that you have it outlined on paper in the first run. It's going to be go and stop and pivot, go and stop and refine. It's going to be a constant iterative process. And so the number one rule in business to allow any vision to become reality is to just remain in business one more day so that you've got one more fighting chance to be able to make it happen. But if you are in a position where you're stuck or you're not seeing growth, you need to slow down and ask questions to ensure that the actions are aligned in producing the vision and the result that you desire. This is just critical. And so I empower almost all business owners, regardless of what stage they're in, with 3 questions to help better understand this. Any activity that you do, whether you have a team that can support it or not, or especially if you don't have a team to support it, any activity that you do in your business, ask these 3 questions before you touch it. Is this something that only I can do? Meaning, in your unique area of brilliance, the 5 to 10% that only you can do and only you can do in the way that you do it. Know the activities that fit there. The second question is this something that someone else could do or would do better? And the last question is this something that even needs to be done? I find there's a lot of waste in that third question, and there's a lot of waste in that second question. But if you can understand how to build the systems and structure within your business so that you can start to delegate, trust, and hand off, and you can live and exist in your unique area of brilliance, I trust me when I tell you, your vision has a far greater chance of coming into reality.
Again, Mr. Brian, very well said. A very empowering answer. What failure become your most valuable teacher?
Well, it was a failure that I think happened frequently. And I'm in a place now where I don't believe in failure anymore. I believe in lessons followed by actions. However, there have been moments in my life that I feel like I failed. And one of those started with how I started my introduction in the very beginning is as a husband and father. I've said for 20 years that I'm a husband and father first, but again, my actions were not always congruent. It reached a point in my marriage where I almost lost everyone and everything in my world because of what I was unconscious to, because of how the trash from my past, the shame and the anger were manifesting in my household in a way that I didn't even see. My wife would say something as simple as this: "Hey, honey, what would you like to do with the kids this weekend?" But my shame and my anger filter would cause me to hear it this way: "Hey, honey, you've not done enough to be a good husband and father here recently. So what are you going to do to make up for it this weekend?" Of course, I'm defending that because my wife's challenging me on being a good husband and father, and I'm a great husband and father. So what happens? I react and I rattle off the 10 things I've done in the last few days to show her I'm a good husband and father. Now what have I done? I've created damage, which is going to require more time, energy, and resources for both of us to create repair and move forward. The point is my anger and my shame, the trash from my past, despite the fact that by 27, I had a $10 million business and growing. By the time I was 35, I exited that business at 15 million and I've been doing this full time ever since. Despite the fact that I had all the boxes checked for all the things that I had that the world told me I should want, I had everything I wanted. My bank account was full, but it cost me who I was and I found myself empty. However, I had a moment that I could choose to ask a different question, choose a different path, and create a different pathway. And what I will tell you is it's the foundation that also led to me having clarity in the Ways to Wealth methodology, because some of the frameworks and the pillars that I developed as a result of what I had to do in my own work to clear out my shame and my anger so I could save my relationship with my wife and my kids was everything. But I'm here today, proud and happy to tell you that my wife and I have been together now going on 19 years. We hid from each other unconsciously for 14, and she's only felt emotionally safe with me for about 36 months. It's also not a coincidence that we have the best relationship, the best marriage, the deepest amount of communication, the deepest amount of intimacy. We've reversed generational patterns in the home. My kids don't remember having an angry father. And as a result of doing that work, despite my injury that caused me to live in daily physical pain for nearly 31 years, I'm now 2 years and 3 months with zero physical pain. And it had nothing to do with anything I did externally. It had everything to do with unpacking the trash from my past that was causing emotional pain and baggage that was manifesting as physical pain and ripping apart my household. That was the greatest failure for me, because had I not had the chance to see it, I'd probably still be stuck in that pattern.
We salute you for being you, Mr. Brian, and thank you so much for empowering us. How do you combat isolation at the top as being the leader of the company?
Community, peers, coaches, It is a lonely game, this world of entrepreneurship, particularly when you're at the top, or it can feel that way. But more often than not, I find that the loneliness actually comes from self isolation because we don't believe we can connect with others or be vulnerable as the leader. And so for me, I used to be in situations where I would be surrounded by people and often still feel completely alone. But again, the root of a lot of the work that I'm teaching and have just referenced at a very high level, even in the core of our conversation today, I now often can be completely alone and never feel lonely. Why? Because I have the connecting points with peers, with business partners, with coaches, with the community that we've built and garnered. And yet, none of those things define who I am. Those are all a manifestation of who I am. And so today, it's a slightly different game because I don't necessarily feel that I have to combat it. I think that I have to recognize that there are moments of feeling lonely and isolated in this entrepreneur or in any business or any leadership type role, because often to be the leader, you're also carrying the heaviest weight. You're setting the greatest example. You're held to the highest standard. And often it feels as if you don't have people that you can rely on or lean on. But as is the case with everything else we've discussed, these are also byproducts of shame, of control, of not being able to delegate, of not being able to set up the right systems, of not being able to open yourself enough to the help, to the questions, to the support, not only of the people that work with you, around you, and for you, but within your community and within your stakeholders that are rooting for you. The biggest way to put yourself in a position where you don't feel isolated and alone in any role in this world is to surround yourself with people who don't just want something from you, but instead they want for you. And if you can stick true to that and live in congruence while still recognizing that we're going to get that wrong and we're going to screw up those boundaries at points, we're going to feel more connected and less isolated than in any other way of approaching it.
Mr. Brian, as the creator of the Ways to Wealth method, what are your short term and long term goals?
Short term and long term come down to one simple thing. For me, it's about presence. My purpose and reason for existence in this moment and every moment that follows is to allow my truth to give others permission to live theirs. I can do that by showing up present and being very active with you here, with the audience, and you here today. That's what's right in front of me. And my short term goals are really connected to that, is creating any tools, any resources, any systems that I can build and create that actually allow me to be more present in my life, to buy back more of my time and still be able to amplify my impact. And so I'm utilizing a lot of workflows and AI and a lot of custom built stuff to allow me to replicate and scale myself beyond what I can hand off to teams. My short term goals all align back to presence, but it's consistently giving myself that capacity to do so. The long term goal, beyond just living as the father and husband that I want to be and the impact and legacy that I know that will leave, we have a stated mission within our business to impact over 1 billion lives as quickly as we possibly can by reducing the level of suffering that exists on this planet, largely of which I believe exists internal. Now, it's not going to be Brian Bogert's name behind those 1 billion lives. I believe that moved people move people. My goal is to move as many as I can, because if I can empower 1,000 to move 1,000 to move 1,000, we're well past that billion. The math shakes out that way. It's a ripple effect. Now, fortunately, I've impacted way more than that today, and I'm going to personally try to impact those 1 billion lives, whether or not they know my name or not. But at the end of the day, if we can have that kind of impact in this world by helping people live in a way that they can be more present, that they can love first, that they can experience joy, freedom, and fulfillment, that they can escape the patterns of their past that were given to them or placed upon them in their trash from their past, that's all created by their environmental conditions, emotional triggers, and behavioral patterns, they can take control and they can step into what's possible. And I believe that that will create a world where we're not so divided, but instead connected, which is what we all want.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Brian, and looking forward for more and more and more success. What would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be a creator like you?
Well, I don't consider myself a creator. However, I have learned to identify with the term of being a creative person. But here's the other side of this. 5 years ago, I didn't even believe I was a creative person. Why? Because I'd shut it off. It wasn't how I identified. It wasn't what I utilized. It wasn't the skill sets of myself that I was able to deploy in this world. However, I've been highly creative always. So to me, being a creator is being able to create your own life, to create it on your terms, to create the freedom, the fulfillment, the joy that you can live within. And so for me, the biggest focus is a couple things. Ask yourself point blank, are you living your life based on your terms, based on your goals, based on your visions, or are you living into someone else's? Are you living based on who you are today and who you want to continue to become? Or are you living inside the box of who the world told you who to be? You can do a simple litmus test here. Create 2 lists. On the first list, I want you to write down all the people, places, sources of information, and environments that you enter into that leave you feeling uplifted. That you could be there for 8 hours and it felt like one because you were in flow. You couldn't wait to get back to see those people, do those things, be in that space. We all know what that feels like, but very few people put intention into understanding it. The second list is the counter. All the people, places, sources of information, environments that you go into that leave you feeling depleted. That you can't imagine spending one more hour there because every 10 minutes feels like you're slamming your head against the wall. You don't want to see those people. You irk and get protective and on all defensive at the idea of even going back to those places, yet you continue to. Many of you in a place of employment that you just slowly die. What I'm going to suggest is incrementally identify and remove, reform, repair, or whatever you need to do on the side of that negative list and spend as much time as possible on the positive list, because our energy points us towards what's important if we're paying attention. And so this is the place I would start.
Thank you for your advice, Mr. Brian, and hoping our listeners or viewers are empowered right now. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in 5th season, abstract poetry in 2nd season, and of course, my book 101 review in 5th season too. Comedy 101 in 2nd season, and my food 101 in its 5th season as well. Geography 101 in 4th season, and my baby podcast, Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love Letters in 3rd season, a movie 101 review and music 101 in its 4th season, and science 101 and sex 101 in its 1st season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Mr. Brian, what's one thing you wish you'd sacrificed less of while building your venture?
I wish I would have sacrificed listening to my authentic voice as many times as I did. My gut always knew I would choose and override with my head based on what I thought I should do. And so the piece of advice for me would have been to not live based on who I should be and what I should do, because should is a shame-based word and it implies whoever you are, whatever you want, it's not good enough. And I wished I would have learned to replace that with what could I be? What would I be? What could I do? What would I do if given a different set of variables? I ignored my own voice for far too long, and I will never hand over the pen of writing my story to anyone else ever again.
Mr. Brian Bogert, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, and truly, truly empowering. And so, can you please invite our listeners to listen to your podcast or to support your advocacy or whatever projects that you are doing right now?
Yeah, we've got a show called Flipping the Lid. You can see it there on the main website, brianbogert.com, or you can go to flippingthelid.com as well. It's a passion project that I have to normalize the conversations that need to be had. There are a variety of other resources and things that we're moving through the world. And so you can find me at Bogert Brian on any of the social media channels. And if there's a way that I can add value into your world, there's any questions, what I know is that 99% of the people that we're going to impact will never pay us a dollar. So we're here as a resource and put a lot out there for that simple purpose. But if you felt compelled by anything that you heard today, you felt moved by any comment, any piece of advice, any tool or question that I just proposed back, whether you go follow me or not is irrelevant. What I care about is that you take action to move it through your own world today. Move it for yourself, move it for someone else, because again, move people, move people. And the biggest compliment, the greatest level of gratitude I can have, whether I know about it or not, is if you move something you took from today through the world to help other people.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Brian Bogert because if you support him, more and more and more empowering coaching to come, more and more empowering episodes of the podcast itself, and for sure, more and more empowering advocacy to come. So, Mr. Brian, thank you so much for your time.
Appreciate you, my friend.
More to come, people. See you soon.